What's up guys, OCDMTG coming back at you with another deck profile video. We are working on part 2 of a 5-part video series with our monocolor decks. Last time I showed Hedron Grinder as our mono red deck. We are moving on now to Marwyn the Nurturer. Mono green, it's going to be elves, but my version of elves. For Marwyn, I saw her and instantly knew I wanted to make my mono green deck with her. So let's get into it. Start off with the easy stuff with our lands. Just like the mono red deck, we were running 28 lands for our land base. So we got 24 basic forests. We have 4 utility lands, 3 Tree City, Wirewood Lodge, Yavimaya Hollow, and Emergence Zone. So just the 4 utility lands, 24 basics, 28 lands. We are running 10 non-permanent spells, and only 10. We got Mobilize, Last March of the Ents, Green Sun Zenith, Finale of Devastation, Genesis Wave, and Hurricane. Hurricane is going to be our non-combat win condition in the deck. If you can get a Staff of Domination with infinite mana, you can win with just this card. With our 4 instants, we have Legolas' Quick Reflexes, Vitalize, Kindred Summons, and Shared Summons. So like I said, just the 10 non-permanent spells, mostly because of this card. I wanted to make the best out of this Genesis Wave as possible for my casual fun shenanigans. So play a big Genesis Wave, X equals like 20. Flip more than likely not any of these cards. If you do, you hit like 1 or 2 of them. Get a bunch of stuff onto the field. I think it's cool I get to run both Last March of the Ents and Legolas' Quick Reflexes in the deck because they're probably the best 2 green cards to come out of Lord of the Rings. They both do things in the deck that I want them to do, so might as well have them in. Making this uncounterable and having this split second also is really nice. So Vitalize and Mobilize are the same thing, just one's an instant and one's in sorcery. Wait, both untap all my creatures for 1 green mana. Next, we're moving on to artifacts and enchantments. For artifacts and enchantments, we only run 8 of each. Artifacts, we got Soul Ring, Emerald Medallion, Staff of Dom. Like I said, this is your main source of winning, usually going infinite with an elf that can tap for 5 or more mana, or Marwyn. So, 1,000-Year Elixir, Vanquisher's Banner, Akroma's Memorial, Great Henge, and Birthing Pod. Birthing Pod, my kind of tech card that I like to use. Anytime I can add Birthing Pod to a deck, I will. It's a great way to tutor, getting rid of a not useful creature to get a useful creature. And for enchantments, we have 8, like I said. Sylvan Library, Growing Rites of Itlimoc, Hardened Scales, Sylvan Anthem, Tribute to the World Tree, Guardian Project, Asceticism, and Wild Pair. This deck is a Wild Pair deck. I spent many nights figuring out how to make this deck the most efficient Wild Pair deck I can. It is very, very hard to explain this deck to anyone casually, so if you guys want, for some reason, a larger explanation video and for me to go in depth of why this works and how I get it to work, I can try, but if there's only enough people that are asking about it, I mean, I can try and answer any questions I can in the comments, obviously, but this is a Wild Pair deck. Moving on to creatures. There's 45 creatures in the deck. We've got 10 1-drops. Only 7 creatures in the deck are non-elf creatures, so we'll go over that too. For our 1-drop elves, we have Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, Boreal Druid, Droraga Tree Speaker, Arbor Elf, Well Source Shepherd, Finhorn Elves, Jiraga Warcaller, and Heritage Druid. I'm trying to use the best elves at my disposal, so if there's certain elves in the deck and certain elves that are not in the deck, and you're questioning why, these are, in my opinion, the best elves for what this deck wants to do. For 2-drops, we got Elvish Warmaster, Wildborn Preserver, Dwinnen's Elite, Seeker of Skybreak, Leaf Crown Visionary, Elvish Clan Caller, Elvish Visionary, Well-Wisher, and Priest of Titania. So, got 1-drops, 2-drops, 3-drops right here. We got Land of Our Tribe, Eladamri, Realm Walker, Sovala, Rishkar, Imperious Perfect, Land of Our Visionary, Missouri, Elvish Archdruid, and Circle of Dreams Druid. Four drops, we got Immaculate Magistrate, Wirewood Channeler, Beast Whisperer, Ivylean Denizen, Dionys, Canopy Tactician, Lizalana, Dwinnen, and Yeva. We only have one 5-drop elf, and it is Guiltleaf Archdruid. This is a mean card. Casually, I don't recommend people playing it, but for what it does, it helps the deck out. So it's a 5-drop elf. Whenever I cast a druid spell, I may draw a card. Elves need draw power. I tell people that this is in the deck for draw power. I only use its ability to steal lands if, for some reason, they are being really mean. So I will fight back by taking your lands permanently. The ability to tap 7 untapped druids to gain target player's land is also built into the deck for just in case. There are exactly 21 druids in the deck. So if I get all of them out on the same battlefield, and for some reason I want to take everyone's land at the same time, I can tap all 21 of my druids on board and steal everyone's lands at the same time. Like I said, I'm not doing it to be mean. It's in the deck for people playing mean stuff. It's mostly in there for the card draw. For our non-elf creatures, for our 1-drop, we have Wirewood Symbiote, 2-drop Voyaging Satyr, 3-drop Eternal Witness, 4-drop Timur Sabertooth, 5-drop Orin Frostfang, and we have 2 7-drops. No 6-drop, unfortunately, but it ended up working out for the wild pair situation. So Regal Force and Zapandrel. Those are our 7 non-elf creatures. The best way to explain this deck is you're playing lots of elves really fast, usually doing the elf shenanigans, but there's more than just one win con of just swinging with huge elves. I put in as much card draw that I could in my shell. There's also just interesting things you can do that have weird interactions. Not trying to play any like Seedborn Muse style for this deck because it's not necessary. I think it's kind of more of like a win more for elves if to play a Seedborn Muse. But the way this deck is built, I actually have 2 alternate commanders that utilize the same exact deck, but I can switch out the commanders if I wanted to. Kind of makes it more fun. You also have Galta and Freyleys. So if I wanted to play a style that wasn't Marwyn and made it more of a quote-unquote casual, I play Galta. The synergy of playing lots of elves and getting a turn 3 Galta is pretty fun. He's more of a smacking with your commander and trying to kill people with combat damage, specifically commander damage. And you know, it can be fun in the sense of if somebody wants to play big stuff, well, I guess I can also play a big thing. The elves are just kind of there as like a secondary source of, like, I don't know, hitting people. But an even more casual way of playing the deck is Freyalise as the commander. By taking out Marwyn, you're taking out technically a druid for the Guildleaf Archdruid, but luckily she makes elf druids with her +2 ability. So, kind of works in my favor, but having it be a planeswalker instead of a creature means she can get killed a lot easier. And she has more utility in the sense of she actually has artifact and enchantment removal. She also has card draw on her, which is nice, but more than likely you're not getting that -6 off. As you saw the deck, you probably noticed there wasn't a lot of artifact and enchantment removal. I don't run a Reclamation Sage, but the deck plays out the way I want it to, which is going off with lots of elves. And with my playstyle, I can pretty much guarantee that I can get my Marwyn up to 5 mana, I'd say on average turn 3 or 4, depending on the hands I start off with. And then from there, I'm just trying to draw into my win cons. Most of the time, it is Staff of Domination to go off and either Hurricane or just swing out with a bunch of elves for combat damage. The Zopandrel's in here because it helps both the Marwyn ability of tapping for mana equal to its power, and for Galta, if I am switching commanders, giving Galta double the power for a turn can make him an instant kill with trample if your opponents just aren't having enough bodies on board. Also, it's a reacher, kind of useful for the fact that most elf decks lack flying or reach, so it's got multi-purpose in it. And the fact that if I have wild power out, it can cast either one of these to get the other one out, kind of nice. Regal Force is something I'm usually getting with any of the tutors in the deck, hoping to get it out and draw lots of cards with it as early as turn 4 or 5. The deck utilizes the Wirewood Symbiote, Eternal Witness, and Sabertooth combo. Wirewood to untap the Marwyn, make more mana. Timur Sabertooth, flick the Wirewood back to hand, recast it, untap the Marwyn, returning a creature back to hand, specifically my elf creatures, and giving this instant speed ability with doubling the fact of Timur Sabertooth's indestructibility is hard to interact with sometimes if you can play it right. The Eternal Witness and the Sabertooth to be able to flick this Eternal Witness to return stuff from a graveyard. So those are in the deck for the reasons that I just gave. Voyaging Satyr, untapping a target land. It is a druid, part of the 21 druids that are in the deck, but also can untap that 3-tree city. So, more mana. Owen Frostfang. And its main use is just like obviously card draw, but with this out and having a Chroma's Memorial, if you have both of them out, now all your creatures have first strike death touch, which makes them more like gods. So you don't have to worry about just having your creatures have death touch but still be blocked. Now you have first strike death touchers that also have all these other keywords. Pretty good. So for Staff of Domination and Hurricane, the way I like to do this is I have Marwyn out, or any elf that taps for 5, have Staff of Domination out. Do the thing where you play Staff. Tap your elf for 5, pay 3 to untap that elf. Pay 1 to untap Staff. Now you have 1 mana net. You do that over and over again. Once you get to infinite mana, you then activate Staff to draw almost your whole deck if you want. If you want to be safe, I usually leave like 5 cards left. Hopefully you draw the Hurricane. After you draw your deck, you're now going to activate the ability to gain 1 life. Just to put yourself at a safe zone, I always say like 100. And then with that infinite mana, you cast Hurricane. X equals 100. Deal 100 damage to each creature with flying and each player. Sure, if you have your Chronos Memorial, it'll kill all your creatures, but I mean, at least you're still killing the table at the same time. So kind of a non-bow, but at least you're winning the game with not combat damage. And it's a Hurricane. Who doesn't like killing with a Hurricane? Alright, that's my mono green deck. Like I said, if there's any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. This is a brew of my own doing that I felt was fun, but obviously very lacking of interaction, but it's mono green, what are you going to do? Until next video, signing off.